Rekluse install videos are meant for general reference only. Please follow the installation manual supplied with your kit for the most accurate information. This video will show you how to install the Rekluse manual slave cylinder for select Harley-Davidson models. This job requires loosening the exhaust system to gain access to the slave cylinder located behind the transmission side cover. Pause the video here to see a list of tools needed for the job. It's recommended to use .4 fluid from a sealed container. Failure to use the correct clutch fluid type will cause seal damage. Read the information located on your bike's clutch fluid reservoir cap to determine which fluid was installed with your bike. Stand the bike up on a suitable bike stand or lift. Removing the exhaust heat shields will give more clearance and help prevent damage from brake fluid. Remove the floorboard to gain access to the exhaust heat shield. Continue removing these sections of heat shields. Loosen the exhaust flange nuts for the front and rear cylinders. Remove the muffler bracket strap. Loosen the muffler hinge clamp. Remove the rear mounting muffler bracket bolts. With the exhaust now loosened, you will be able to remove the transmission side cover. Remove the two transmission side cover bolts located on the left and right side of the cover. Cover the exhaust to keep it clear from any brake fluid. Loosen the hydraulic line assembly. Next, loosen the bleed screw. Before removing the slave cylinder, note the location of the hydraulic line rubber grommet. It will need to be positioned the same way when installing the Rekluse slave cylinder. You can now loosen the slave cylinder bolts and remove the assembly. Note the location of each bolt for when it's time to reinstall. Remove the assembly. Remove the bleeder screw. Next, remove the hydraulic line assembly. Clean the area where the slave cylinder will mount. Install and hand tighten the bleed screw to the Rekluse slave cylinder. Next, install the hydraulic line and hand tighten. Mount the Rekluse slave cylinder to the transmission case using the OE bolts. Return each bolt to its original location. The seal fitment on the Rekluse slave cylinder is tighter than the OE slave cylinder. It is easiest to install the slave using the OE bolts, tightening in small increments to gently press the slave into the case. Torque between 84 to 108 inch-pounds. Before tightening the hydraulic line, be sure the rubber grommet is positioned correctly. Tighten the hydraulic line. The transmission side cover will be installed after bleeding the system. Place a wrench over the bleed screw and attach one end of the supplied tube. Place opposite end into a suitable catch container. On the handlebar, adjust the clutch master cylinder reservoir so that it is somewhat level. Remove the cap and bladder from the clutch master cylinder. Fill the master cylinder with .4 fluid until it is 3/4 full. The fluid level of the master cylinder will drop as the system is bled. Be sure to keep it full enough to prevent air from getting into the system. To bleed the system, start by pumping the clutch lever 3 to 5 times. Then hold it against the handlebar grip. Keeping the lever held against the grip, use a wrench to open the slave cylinder bleed port. Air and fluid should flow into the bleed tube. Before releasing the clutch lever, tighten the bleed port. Slowly release the clutch lever and check the fluid level in the clutch master cylinder. Fill if necessary. Repeat these steps until air no longer comes out of the bleed port and the clutch feels normal. Remember to keep an eye on the fluid level in the master cylinder and refill when needed. When you're finished bleeding the system, remove the tube from the bleed bolt. Torque the bleed screw to 150 inch-pounds with a socket or the closed end of a 3/8 wrench. Don't use an open-ended wrench as it could strip the hex screw. Check for leaks around the bleed port and hydraulic line. Moving the exhaust out of the way, position the transmission side cover. Reinstall the bolts onto both sides. Torque bolts between 84 to 108 inch-pounds. Next, tighten the exhaust system. Start with the rear mounting muffler brackets. Torque to 25 foot-pounds. Next, tighten the hinge clamp. Apply Loctite to the bolt. Torque to 25 foot-pounds. Install the muffler bracket strap. Torque to 18 foot-pounds. Next, tighten the exhaust header assembly, starting with the front cylinder. Torque the top exhaust flange nut between 9 to 18 inch-pounds. Next, torque the lower exhaust flange nut between 100 to 120 inch-pounds. Now torque the top exhaust flange nut between 100 to 120 inch-pounds. Repeat these torque steps for the rear cylinder. Reinstall the exhaust heat shields. Reinstall the floorboards. Torque to your OEM specifications.